dementia residents know that they need to be stimulated in order to get their thinking going, as they call it. And they know that unless they keep on top of it with their positive thinking, they can plummet very quickly or escalate right up into anxiety, as many dementia residents do that they can witness all around them. I mean, with most of them coming into the dementia unit, that being the most anxiety-provoking time, being admitted to the unit, practically all dementia residents will have experienced anxiety, high anxiety or depression. So they know that they could easily slip if they didn't make that effort to keep their cognition going and to keep that positive thinking going. And so this was their big effort in the workshops that we did, to keep positive, to keep strong, to keep thinking, to make sure that they didn't slip back into depression and anxiety, as is so easy to happen in a dementia unit. Now, within the actual workshops themselves, the residents were really vigilant about this positive thinking. They really were, and it wasn't just coming from me, it really absolutely was coming from them, because if someone in the group, there was, for example, in one of the workshops we had, there was a gentleman who was a former plumber, nice man, aphasic at times, his speech came and went, but he had this poor quality habit of eye rolling at everything that everyone would say, you know, sarcastic expression. And the dementia, they really didn't like it in the workshop. And in the end, they just asked him to leave because, look, there's no negativity here. We don't want it. You know, it's too much. And he didn't really come back to the group after that. I mean, he tried in part, but he was just too on the other side. You know, he wasn't prepared to make the effort. Another thing he used to do is, there was one woman at the workshop, she was very astute, bright, well-read, and she used to make the effort to remember everyone's names. Herculean effort when you've got recent memory loss. Somehow she managed it. And there were 8 regulars in the workshop, and she managed to remember all of their names, but she would put a lot of intensive practice into it. So at least, you know, 10, 20 rounds a day, just go around, get everyone's name, get them to say their name. Good practice for them to remember their own name, say their name. She'd go around, and eventually it took her maybe a couple of 4-6 weeks to remember everyone's name. And even with new people coming in, she'd get to know their names as well, which was massively impressive. Anyway, this man would say, oh, he'd point at her accusingly and say, she's always asking me my name. And it was really unpleasant. And in the end, the resident said, look, she's making an effort, you're not, and so we don't want you here. So he couldn't partake after that. So, I mean, he'd sit in the 2nd, 3rd row and watch, but he wasn't part of the central group. So this positivity, to keep the cognition going, they said, look, we've got to be positive. If we're not, it won't work. Because, of course, escalating to the anxiety or depression, you know, dementia's there. They've got so many issues to deal with. Unless they can keep their cognition active and strong and positive and focused, you know, all the negative will easily take them back. So in terms of being stimulated, the dementia residents love everything new and novel and interesting and current, enthusiasm filled, you know, whether it's singing or David Attenborough or The Crown or activities of interest or note. They really are happy to get involved in anything that's positive, that's interesting, that's novel, and gets their cognition going. But in particular with relatives, what they do say is they like to have discussions. They like to have discussions with the relatives. Just making a note of this. Not, you know, they used to often say not for the relative to just come in and sit down and have a cup of tea, ask you how you are, and that's the end of the conversation. We need information and input. We need to know what's going on with the outside world. We need to have, if we don't have information, how can we engage in conversation? So when you visit your dementia relative in the unit, make some effort to bring in something interesting to discuss, or just through discussion itself, explain to mum, you know, or your mother, you know, what's happening with the family and what's happening in the city, what's happening in the country, what's happening in the world, and just give her a little update. I mean, she will so appreciate it, because in that way, if she's on board with what's happening, she can then converse and take an interest in that, so that if you've updated her in the familiar voice that she's used to, she can absorb that at her own pace. Then when she listens to the news at night on the TV, she's much more likely to be able to imbibe it and take it on board once she's had that good discussion with you, because you need information from lots of different sources to be able to get your cognition going. So discussion with relatives is a fabulous way. Trips out, outings, car trips, looking at the scenery, out in nature, out to the beach, grandkids coming in, dog coming in, whoever coming in, you know, different times of day or night, not night, but day, weekends out, lots of variety, and especially summer and spring, you know, when nature's at its best, they can get outside and just get some fresh air and sunshine. You know, that's good for cognition, I'm sure, and exercising with that, and I'm sure an ice cream doesn't go astray. Lots of pleasure with the fish and chips. On it goes, isn't it? Flowers for the room, birthday presents, perfumes, whatever. But input, really, interesting, informative, cognitive input, so that the person has a chance of being able to get their thinking going and not end up like a vegetable, as they say. No one should end up like a vegetable. That was one of their big sayings. So for that, they need to have a lot of stimulation, intellectual stimulation, to be able to overcome and override the recent memory loss problems that are so profound with dementia, as we know. So I've written about these topics at length: Resident's Voice, Resident's Rise, both on Amazon, everything in the description below. Thank you for your viewing, likes, please subscribe, thanks.